Welcome to the Gentleman's Talk, where the podcast talks about a man's battle with mental health, his personal experiences, and his journey to be a better soul. Hosted by James Dean Littlejohn.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Gentleman's Talk. Here I am again, full of vigour and full of spice. A little bit wired because I have had a booming day today. What a day. I'm on assignment, my final assignment of my degree, and it's blowing my mind, absolutely blowing my mind. I'm trying to do work, this degree, I've put 4 or 5 hours in this weekend, I've put a whole day in today, and I've put 3 hours in this evening, and I've literally just clicked hibernate and pressed instant play on this so I can smash out this podcast before I can settle down and go to bed. And here I am now at almost 9 o'clock and have not stopped for the day. Just a half an hour in the middle of the day for a quick walk. Oh, and 10 minutes just a minute ago because I was literally off. I completely lost my train of thought and everything. Doing this degree's blown. I mean, don't get me wrong. I know health and safety can be bloody boring at times, but it's so in depth that it blows your mind. Just craziness, just absolute craziness. But there's hopefully some sort of golden carrot at the end of it. I think I'm unsure, but I'm going to keep on wading through. I will be actually happy when this is done and dusted. I'm not going to lie. This has probably been. And it's not even been that long. It's been about a year, but it's just mental. And I think now I'm at the point where I'm like almost full of learning anyway. But I enjoy learning process. But at this level 6, level 7s, it's quite hard for me, even for me. And you've got to remember, I am getting long in that tooth. Anyway, interesting day today. And I've got so much to talk about, which is why I've jumped straight back on and just literally managed to get a quick drink and talk to you because so much to talk about. I've had a really interesting day with a conversation with one of my friends who, again, this is this feedback thing. He chucked some feedback at me, put me into a situation and a scenario and asked me how I would deal with it. And I offered advice on how I would approach it and just on the basis of my experiences, really. So, really rewarding talk, and that's why I jumped on today, not only to talk about tomorrow's podcast, because that's the main reason why I wanted to talk today, because I'm really excited about it, and the ball is well and truly rolling. But also just to talk about this scenario, really, and just kind of let you know the problems that we face as men, and not only just as men in general from relationships, but also in men as general from friendships, and some of the things you can be presented with. I mean, today I genuinely had a shock factor. I'm not going to lie to you. I genuinely said, wow. And you'll probably say wow at the same point I did. I'll let you, decide that yourself. So anyway, he wanted to talk to me, and my mate Billy, this friend of mine, and he was like, "I just got something to talk about." So, and once we put aside, the banter that was flowing, and we actually got down to the nitty gritty of the conversation, he said to me, "Can I chuck a scenario your way? And I want to know, what would you do in this situation?" And I said, "Well, give me the full context of the story." So we had a really good chat. So, and like I said, it gave me an element of a shock factor, to be honest. And so he said to me, he's got this friend, and he started off the conversation with, "I've got this friend, we were out shooting yesterday, and, I kind of asked him how he was, and he said he wasn't in a good place." And he kind of went, "Well, okay, well," I said, "Well, what did you say?" He said, "Well, I was shocked, I didn't know what to say." He said, "What would you have said?" And I said, "Well, I need to know the facts." And he's like, "Well, this same guy," and we'll go back there now. Same guy, he said he's known him for a long time, and he said he got with this girl years ago. Well, they were good friends, and then all of a sudden this guy got with a girl, and, like most guys or most relationships, there's an element where you do put aside your friends a little bit and you concentrate on the relationship. That's hard to experience, and it's also hard to experience from a personal perspective, from your own perspective as well. Once you realise you've done that, so eventually you do get punished. Just to let you know that if a person does that, they will eventually get punished in some sort of way. For leaving you in the lurch. So I said, okay, so so he got this girl, and he was like, yeah. He said so. And every time he invited this guy out again and said, do you want to go out? Do you want to do this? Do you want to go there? And the guy was like, no, I'm going with such and such. No, we're doing this. No, we're doing that. And the relationship sort of came quite controlling against his friend. So, he kind of ended up taking a bit of a step back. So you naturally do. You naturally step back and let them do their own thing. As hard as that is to allow that, especially if you've got a good friendship, it's hard to allow that, but at the same time, you have to respect it. We've all done it, and we all go through it. This is why we get into relationships, I think, to maintain a relationship where we're just enjoying each other's company, but still get the freedom of having your friends. But when you're in that honeymoon period, the first 6 months to a year, and everything's new and fun, and you're exploring everything, and basically anywhere and everywhere, you can imagine what goes down. So you got to kind of look at it that's a really fun time to be a human, because there's just pure excitement all the time. And then that does subside. It always subsides. You get over the honeymoon period, and then you start exploring each other, and kind of understanding each other, and actually realising you can't fucking stand the way that they chew, or just the way they generally look sometimes. So you get to that point, don't you? You kind of just fizzle out, and then you look for your friends again then, don't you? And that's almost the punishment phase for you then, because you've then realised that no one's talking to you, and you're like, oh fuck, no one's talking to me. And you kind of realise then, actually I was a bit of a dick. And then normally when you go to that friend and say, sorry mate, I was a bit of a dick, and they go, yeah you were, you're a fucking idiot, don't do it again. And they will, inevitably, and you'll say don't do it again, and it will keep happening. It's a shit cycle, but it never changes. It certainly hasn't changed through the generations that I've known anyway. So anyway, he let that slide, he said that's fine, and anyway, this guy had a pre-planned event arranged, and this newish girlfriend, she fell pregnant, so obviously he was excited. And sort of said, brilliant. So it looked like it was going somewhere. They'd been together a while. And he had a pre-planned event, and this girl turned around. This is the shock factor bit, I think, for me. Turned around to this guy and said to him, if you go out or go away this weekend, then I'm going to abort the baby. And that's the stage where I was like, wow, that's pretty fucking extreme. And, and then my mate Billy said to me, what would you do in that situation? I said, well, obviously I'd still go out. I'd still have Billy Big Bollocks and go, no woman is going to, let's be face it, no woman's going to abort a baby over somebody going out. So I'd have just gone, well, she's obviously playing fucking games. Because once you set that level, that bar, and you set it to that standard that you're willing to allow her to be that fucking crazy, and control you've got there's no relationship there. You're just under the thumb. You will do whatever you are fucking told, and that's fine in a dominatrix situation, in the bedroom, in a controlled environment with a safe word. But it's not advisable in a standard relationship that's day to day. If a woman is willing to abort a baby that is growing inside of her for the sake of you not going out, then the questions have got to be asked, haven't they? So I said to the guy, well, I would have just gone out. So, that, and he said, well, that's the advice I gave to this guy. So go out anyway, don't be fucking silly. She's not going to do that. Go on out. And I was like, right, brilliant. And I said, well, did he go out? He's like, yeah, he went out. He literally went out. And then he went, yeah. And she fucking aborted the baby. Wow. Wow. She did fucking what? Now, that was the shock factor for me. That this woman was willing to say it, but also she's willing to do it. So naturally I was like, well, fucking hell. So he said, what would you do in that situation then? And these are the sort of situations that I'm coming at. I said, well, there's no fucking win-win in that situation, is there? Let's be brutally honest. There's no win-win. You're emotionally hurt. I don't know how far this baby was gone. I've never looked into the abortion side of things, but I imagine it's still under the realms of we're talking about it and we know it's happening. So as a relationship, you're going to be excited. He was probably excited to be a dad, and probably thought that everything was going nice for him. So lo and behold, he's in a shit sandwich. She's done this, and he said, well, what do you do? So naturally, this guy had a bit of a breakdown. But, from a positive perspective, I said, well, the only thing I could do as a friend, really, because, I'm not a fucking psychiatrist or a therapist or a doctor. So for me personally, what can I do? There's not a lot I can do, just apart from say to him, you've obviously dodged a fucking bullet in the sense that she's fucking crazy, and you don't want somebody that is that fucking crazy raising children. And you certainly don't want to be in a relationship with someone that fucking crazy. So you've dodged a bullet there, mate. You've got out. You're not being controlled. But however, we all still have feelings. We all still have emotions, don't we? We all still feel things. He's lost two things in one there. He's lost a potential child and he's lost his partner, and realised he's with a fucking crazy person. So he's had a little bit of icing on the cake. And understandably, he was a bit shit, so he then went back to my friend, and my friend offered him kind of a nice sort of kind of shoulder to cry on, and all the stuff that he should do, and became a good friend. So kudos to my friend Billy for doing that, because it does take a lot to go back, and to go back for the negatives as well, especially when you probably told him she's fucking crazy, because we all see crazy, unless you're looking through rose-tinted glasses of a relationship and the honeymoon phase, then you're not going to see a lot, are you? So it's great that he was there. And anyway, little bit of time, went by, sort of subsided by, and sort of perked this guy back up, and then gets into another relationship, and sort of kind of goes all well and does a similar thing, kind of chins him off a little bit again for the relationship, and such like. So, Billy's now, that's twice now he's done that, this guy. So I was sympathising with Billy then. I was saying, well, yeah, okay, once, mate, that's understandable, but twice in quick concession, especially once you've been, I think, if you go from a relationship and there's been nothing traumatic in between, but to go through that trauma, I would have felt invested in that guy. And that's where I talk about nurturing in your friends around you, because I would have been invested in that guy. It's just like I'm invested in my friends a lot, because I'll listen to their stories, and I'll help them, and I'll advise them, and I become part of their own journey. So that means a lot to me. That's how in depth I feel about people that surround me. So I can see where he's now feeling a little bit stumped, a little bit sort of kind of shit. He's like, Christ almighty. So, and they work in the same profession. So, things, they still talk, and et cetera, but it's nowhere near that depth. But when you've had that trauma and you've pulled someone through that trauma, and then they still treat you like that, it's a right kick in the dick, innit? You're kind of like, from a friend's perspective, that's a real shitter, isn't it? And that's when I would have said, okay, well, that guy then is clearly, you're not on his priority list. And this is where I've spoken about priority list so many times, and friends, and I said, to me, then straight away, he's not on your priority list. Before I really knew about, then you've got to take into consideration the start of the conversation we've just had, where this guy's been met at a shoot, a shotgun shoot, clay pigeons. So, for all you, bush beaters out there, clay pigeons. So they've met, and then he said he's lonely. So you've got to understand there's a little bit in the middle I'm going to talk about a bit more about, but understand at the same time where the advice I would have given Billy would have contradicted the advice that I did eventually give him, because I knew about the whole situation. Now, so go back to this guy, he's back in this relationship, and he's chinned off Billy again. And, now he's in this scenario where this guy is, loved up again and all the good stuff. Anyway, this turns out this guy has an accident in his job, which is what he was later compensated for. But to go with the sort of injury, came out of work, so became depressed, was on a multitude of painkillers, which would have contained opiates, which would have caused him addictions. And as the more we started learning and understanding about this guy, he was out of his sleep cycle. He stopped getting erections. So naturally his relationship suffered, because not only is he probably sad, he's not working, he feels useless. He's taking medication to combat the back pain. He'd gone and bought a hot tub and got himself in debt because he needed a hot tub for try and rehabilitate him. And I know that that's probably the extreme sense, but when you're in chronic pain, and I can relate 100% to that, when you're in chronic pain every day with your back, it's not a nice feeling. And he's probably the extreme version. I don't know what his incident was without sort of diving into those details, but I don't know them. But to be on a Skittles bag of tablets a day, twice a day, you can understand it's probably quite severe. Military context as well, so it could have been, they're both, it's a military context, so he could have been severely hurt somewhere, or doing some sort of activity probably would have caused this. Anyway, so he's feeling a bit shit. He's in a low situation, he's now losing his relationship again. And ultimately, these little minor details we didn't know about until after the event. This is what's come to light. So this guy then split up with his girlfriend again, and due to those factors and more I'll talk about. And so now he's lonely again. So he's lonely. He received his compensation, so he managed to pull himself out of his debts, and sort of pick himself up financially. And this is where I allude back to the start again, where I said from the outside he's got everything, so now he's got compensation, he's got his hot tub and everything. But in actual fact, this guy has now turned up to a shotgun shoot and asked for help, basically. So I kind of see the sympathetic eye of my mate Billy, and how I would have interpreted that and gone, well, you're not on his priority list, so fuck him off, because he's clearly being a dick. And then also, when you hear about the story, you have an element of compassion for it, and an element of, actually, it's not on my friends list, but this is beyond a friends list. This guy needs fucking help. And let's face it, you don't have to be a friend to want to help a guy. It's we don't get enough help as it is. So, and then the details poured in a little bit as the conversation went on, and that's when I found out about this guy has to take a plethora of medication, which is probably giving him addiction to opiates, because he was waking up at 2-3 in the morning and having a hot tub. And even Billy was like, well, what the fuck are you doing getting up at that time? He's like, well, that's when the painkillers wear off, and I can't keep taking them because I just live in a zombie state all the time. So he said, I've had to revert back to other alternative methods, so which is where he had to get himself in debt to get a hot tub, because we all know that this sort of hydrotherapy is good for the muscles and relaxing the muscles, etc., etc. So you can kind of understand the sympathetic side of things from both angles there. And so he turned around and said, this guy, he's taking his medication. He's now lost his relationship, because he wasn't getting erections, because the medication just made him, completely not work, which is standard. He's probably on depression medication, because he would have been, out of work, unfit, feeling useless. So he's probably on that, which erectile dysfunction does fall, unfortunately, inside with or coincide with, one of the side effects. Not so much erectile dysfunction, but the lack of ability to climax. This is a really, really big issue with antidepressants. So it's kind of like, just becomes a whirlwind of frustration between him and his girlfriend. So they ultimately split, because she went off to go and get a bit of penis somewhere else, because that's where she thinks, they all say it's just men that think with their dick, but women clearly do as well. So he was left lonely. So from the outside perspective, and this is what everybody sees, yeah, he was at home, so he's relaxing, he's got compensation, he's got a nice brand new spanking car, his house is almost paid off, he's got hot tubs and all the other Gucci gadgets, go shotgun shooting. He's, from the outside in, he looks amazing. And then when you dive inside and you go behind those shutter doors and you shut the shutter doors and you see that actually he's in the pits of hell, he's not sleeping, he's not got no love life, he's lonely, he's depressed, he now doesn't want to go out, it's a lot to take on board, you know, so you can understand then. And that's when my whole ethos, when I read the full picture, was because we now know the full picture. And this is where it's really important to talk, is because you get the whole picture. And I said to Billy, I was like, well, you straight away need to reach out to him today. He's like, well, I spoke to him yesterday. I was like, no, mate, you literally just get him a message. You don't have to say a lot. You don't have to put out a lot. You don't even have to offer a lot. Just offer him your support through telephone, or the fact that if he ever does need you, at the drop of a hat, you'll go. He may never want to use that. He may never want the phone call, but just you saying that you're there, just you offering to know that you're willing to go, will alleviate some of the pressure. Because I can talk from like full experience that I didn't have that, because I didn't nurture that. That's not anyone else's fault. That's my fault probably, because I didn't nurture that trust in people. But when I was sat, you know, those 2 times I've been sat, and that one time I was sat in the field, at stupid o'clock in the morning, wanting to go and you know, ultimately taking the overdose, I had no one. So by offering your support to that person, whether it's just a phone call or the offer of support whenever he needs it, just by saying that means a lot. I've since had that with friends now, you know, especially my best friend he said to me, you know, recently, you know, I spoke about it a lot, that he said to me recently that, you know, if you need to ring me, mate, whatever time of the day it is, 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, whatever, because that is when most people will be in a shit state, is that early hours in the morning. It's not going to be during the day because we're preoccupied. It's not going to be early in the evening because we're preoccupied. It's going to be when you can't sleep. It's going to be when you've been sat there when everyone's snoring around you, or when you're sat there and you can't physically sleep and you're sick of staring at the wall, and you've started counting sheep and you've done everything in your Google history to try and get to sleep, and none of it works because it doesn't work, because you can't switch off. It's like me now at you know, 9:15. I haven't stopped all day, and I've just taken on and regurgitated information, and I'm still ticking over. But I know that as soon as I finish this podcast and I go and get a cup of tea, I'm going to crash. So I will sleep well tonight. But that is actually a lot of stress to put on yourself. I couldn't maintain it, and you know, and I used to maintain that. And that's where it goes to. It's the 2-3 o'clock in the morning when you think, who can I call? Who can I call at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the morning? That's when you need that person. And he said to me, if you need me, he said, I might be half asleep, but just fucking ring, mate. And I'm like, that just means the world to me, mate, knowing that I've got someone to call. You know, because mental health doesn't go away. We manage it. We deal with coping mechanisms. But I will have this. Like, there's days where I'll crash out. I know that I'm working my way towards that, because at the moment I'm taking on too much information. I'm just trying to slow down. I'm trying to manage it. But there's going to be it's that accelerated pace of me trying to complete this degree is consuming me a little bit, and I need to recognise that. And thankfully I'm going away this weekend to hopefully give me a complete breakaway from the computer. But yeah, just having that. So I said to him, just offer your support in a voice message. If he doesn't reply, it doesn't matter. You've offered it. If he does reply and takes you up on it, just take it up, mate. It doesn't matter. The past is the past. Yeah, if he does it again, it does it again. You know, but it's better to be there for that person. I mean, there's obviously taking the fucking piss in there. It's a fine line between taking the piss. But then I would caveat that with, once he pulls himself out, I'd go, look, dude, mate, I fucking like your company, and we're having a good fucking we've got a good friendship, but you're being a bit of a dick. And that's where we communicate then, do you know? If you don't communicate, you'll never understand. He may never know that he's doing it. He might just get into that. That might just be his fluffy stage. You know? It might be when he's most content and most relaxed. We all get this extra endorphin release depending on what floats your boat. You know, if you're a gamer, for instance, you know, you might get an extra buzz from coming top of the leaderboard. You know, if you're into shooting, you might get a buzz from smashing the clay, or, you know, whatever you're shooting. Wakeboarding, I know I get an exceptional buzz when I start doing tricks and, you know, stuff like that, even for an old bastard like myself. So you'll get a buzz from everything you do. He might not have a buzz, but he gets a buzz from a new relationship that might release his endorphins, consumes him. And it is, you know, we all know that, you know, love is blind. You know, you do get, and men fall in love a lot quicker than women. So, you know, we get the inhibitions, you know, so he might just get consumed. He might need educating. He might need telling about it. Talk to him about it. So, you know, I learned a hell of a lot, you know, about that whole scenario. I certainly learned how to approach it, and it was really rewarding to be asked and put into that situation, because let's face it, it's not a situation I've particularly been in terms of, you know, the start of the way it went out and the way it escalated. But it was interesting how I'd look at it prospectively, and also I've lived on the side of his friend, so I know what it's like to want to need somebody. I know what it's like to be addicted to opiates and taking fucking 12 to 15 tablets a day because you live off them. I've done that, you know, and you know, I've drank loads. You know, there's nothing I haven't sort of done through depression and anxiety that, you know, isn't detriment. You try everything, you know. So I also know what it's like to be dependent on painkillers just for the agony and pure sheer pain that you can be in. I also know what it's like to not sleep and be sat up for hours a day, and then just keep burning yourself into the ground. So I had a relatable view from both perspectives. I had a relatable review at the initial stages where I said to him, well, chin him off, you're not on his priority list. And then I had a relatable review to, you know, how to deal with this scenario from the inside and what I would like as a friend. But it's all down to communication. It's all about men talking. This is what it's all about. It's about engaging with that person. Like I said, that guy might not know he does it. He might know he does it, but if you highlight it, he'll try not to do it again. Certainly not leave you out in the full lurch. You know, you have to respect that there's going to be an element of that honeymoon phase. You can't get rid of it. I think we all get it. He might just snap out of it a bit sooner. So hopefully he got a lot from that. I certainly did myself, and to inspire me to talk about it, actually. So interesting thoughts, really. There was quite a lot there. There was a lot of, manipulation with regards to how men can be treated in relationships and how having a child can be used against you. You know, how your actions can have consequences towards your friends. If you're the person that sat there and be in the honeymoon phase and chinning your friend off, maybe you've done that and noticed it and actually think, well, at the end of the day, you know, friendships, like I said, they last a lifetime if they're cared for. It's when friendships only deteriorate when both parties stop trying. That's the crux of anything. In fact, that's the crux of any relationship and friendship. They fail when both parties stop caring and stop, you know, fighting for that friendship or that relationship. That's the be all and end all of it. So, you know, if you're ever in a situation where you're not making an effort with a friend, or they're not making an effort with you, then they've stopped fighting for your friendship, so you're not worth it. And that's where we revert back to your priority list, and where you are on that priority list. You've now been bumped down. So, you know, you might be one of these guys that gets contacted weekly. You might be one of these guys that gets contacted monthly, and then you might be that really one guy that gets contacted yearly to 10 yearly. Do you know what I mean? So you look at yourself in that category and how much you speak to your friends, and then you'll know where you sit in that priority list with them. And then you can adapt your own priority list with that. You know, that's a bit of a, you know, a bit of a thing with that. But ultimately, communication, and we should all, no matter what, in a moment of crisis, always try and be there for our fellow brothers. You know, because at the end of the day, there's not a lot out there for us to talk to, and we don't like talking at the best of times. So your little networks, if someone's willing to open up to you, someone's willing to offer you the inside of their, you know, their emotions, then you need to embrace it, because that takes a lot to do that. It's not very often that men will show their true emotions, especially if they're going to sit there and show you through tears. That's a significant signal if you've ever seen a man cry. But yeah, so that was an interesting scenario today. But like I said, I felt like I needed to share that just because there was so much involved in it, and it just goes to show that, you know, no matter what you've got, and I relate again that, you know, from the outside everyone thinks I've got everything, but in the inside I'm sat here battling daily. You know, it's constant. It's just I'm fighting emotions. Like I said, I'm fighting with emotions on my degree. I'm fighting with my, you know, old friendships and new friendships, and just, you know, managing all that, managing my day, and making sure I can keep everybody not happy, because it's the wrong word, but just I've got it to the point where it's nicely fine-tuned, and sometimes I get a little glitch when I have to be stuck into education. But that brings me nicely onto what I can class as an exciting time for me, actually. So tomorrow, it is booked. It is locked in. Invite has been sent. Co-host has been invited. Tomorrow is live session. So I'm not going to do my podcast tomorrow. I'm going to do my live session tomorrow. So it's finally locked in. Nobody got back to me, apart from the guy that I didn't ask, and he will probably let you know about that tomorrow. So tomorrow I'm going to talk about some mental health. I've got a nice little scenario, and the way that I'm going to talk about it is because I want to give you the structure of how it goes. So it's my mate Billy, who's basically the talk of the talk of the podcast today, really, just from the story he shared with me, and he is going to jump on tomorrow and do an hour's podcast with me. He's going to put some time aside and jump on, and Billy, the banter man, is set to come on board. So yeah, it should be exciting times. I'm really excited, actually. So where the structure is going to work is he's got the invite. We've scheduled it in on podcast. It won't be live on my this platform. It'll be recorded. But if you go on to Podbean, the app Podbean, it's like a little black logo in the background with a green Wi-Fi symbol on the front. I'm on there. That's where I do my main recording. I record on Podbean, which is what this is on, and this is what I'm going live on. And then I also double upload to Spreaker, which is like not speaker, Spreaker with a r, and that distributes it amongst all the other platforms for me. So I subscribe to two platforms. So we're going on Podbean tomorrow live, and then I'll upload the sort of final version, saved version, onto Spreaker. But the way the agenda is going to go, he's got the invite. We're set for 7 o'clock tomorrow, which is going to be a good, nice time. And I'm going to send him a text message with a question, a mental health question, about 10 minutes before the podcast is due to air. And then what I'm going to do is ask him some questions on that. I'm not going to give him much. And the reason I'm doing this is this is the kind of method I wanted to go with, because I want to surprise attack people with a question, but I don't want to give them time to think about it. I want to ask them the question, and then I want to see their reactions on it. But I want to almost get it to the point where it's just quickly digested, and they look at it and they go, Christ, that's what it is. And then it comes straight into a live podcast, and we're going to digest it. And then we're just going to go into a nice, easy flow. It's my first one, so I'm going to be a little bit, not nervous, because live is live, but it's live to me. It's just like recording, but just making sure it goes smoothly. So hopefully, like this podcast, it gets better with time. I know where I started 4 months ago, like a bumbling wreck, and to where I am now. So I'm gonna, and that's the way I'm gonna do that's the way I'm gonna set my lives, I think, because I think that's quite a good way of doing it. And the fact that I can host up to 8 people, I think we're gonna just really sort of kind of get on with this. It's gonna be good laughs, and we're just gonna talk about mental health. We're gonna talk about his experience of mental health. And we're going to talk about sort of other scenarios and a couple of questions. Just keep it lighthearted, a bit of banter. And see how it goes. So I'm excited. So watch out for that tomorrow. That's my live. And yeah, that's amazing. I'm gobsmacked. I'm doing a short and sweet one tonight, just because I need to go and relax, because otherwise my day, it's 9:30 now, and my day just disappears. So I'm going to love you and leave you, but thank you for listening. Hope the stories have given you food for thought. And I hope you're excited about the live tomorrow. And then every Tuesday I want to do a live with somebody, so I can get some people on board, and we can get loads of people, different perspectives on, mental health, different journeys, and even including most of them would be my friends to start with. I want to ask them about insights from an outside perspective of me as well, which would be interesting to hear, that 180 report inside of things. It's always interesting to know what people think about you, especially in an honest environment where they can't sort of kind of. I don't want people to sort of shy away. I'd rather they were honest, because I can understand and relate, because I know my downfalls. I've acknowledged my downfalls, but so it should be exciting. So lots of stuff coming up. So enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you for listening, and bring on tomorrow the gentleman's talk live chat. It's coming at you. Take care, everyone. Speak to you soon.